Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the P. Carroll Sport Podcast. Paul Carroll here on this Monday, the 22nd of September. And on this week's podcast, the first of two podcasts this week, because it's a quick turnaround to the preliminary or to the quarterfinals next weekend. But on the first podcast of this week, we're going to be looking back on what happened on the weekend just gone by. We had 10 games across the Tipperary Senior, Premier Intermediate, and Intermediate Hurling Championship. And on this week's podcast, I'll be looking back. I keep saying this week. On today's podcast, we'll be going back over all those games. I'll be giving my thoughts. I'll be reacting to the draw as well. And then I'm going to do a podcast maybe Wednesday evening that will look ahead to what's coming next weekend and what's going to be a really exciting weekend of games with the draws that have been thrown up. I do have the draws. I'll get them up on screen. You can't see the screen just yet. I need to change that here for you. There we go. So that is, they're the games that happened over the weekend. I'll go down through my predictions and how we got on there. And as always, we'll go down game by game. That is the draw on screen. I'll leave that there just for a second as I talk. But as always, we'll go through game by game and what happened over the weekend. I'll give my thoughts. We'll go through my predictions. And we'll leave the predictions for the quarterfinals for Wednesday's podcast. So how did you enjoy the games? What did you think of them? Let me know in the comments below. I'll reply to all the comments, and a reminder as well to like the video. Of course, we're doing well with the likes and the following on the podcast, so all that stuff really helps. So like, follow if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. It is all free, so hope you enjoy the content. We've had a really good support throughout the county championship, and now we're getting down to the business end. So let's get straight into the action. I'll try and keep this fairly, we're 11 minutes past 7 as I'm recording this, so let's jump straight into it. So we'll go to the senior championship first. 3 preliminary quarterfinals. They were all tight games. We had a 3-point game, a 4-point game, and a 1-point game. So that is that's the Dan Breen Championship kind of summed up really. We'll start with this Toomevara versus JK Brackens. This was on Saturday, 18 points to 15. Toomevara with the win. As I have written down there, very slow game, kind of tit for tat. There was never more than, I think the first time the lead was 3 points, if I'm not mistaken, was in injury time when Mark McCarthy put over a brilliant line ball. But after that, it was Toom ahead by a point or two. Brackens maybe getting back level. Toom maybe Brackens went up by a couple of points at some stages. It was 11 points to 10 at the half, and I think that was to Toomevara. And in the second half, it's just a real slow kind of game. A lot of frees, a lot of missed frees, uncharacteristically so from both Shane Doyle and Darren McCarthy in particular. Darren McCarthy missed a few frees, but they're all far out, like on his own 45 kind of thing. Similarly for Shane Doyle, he missed a few long range ones as well. Probably missed one or two that he would have definitely have expected to get around the 65. But all in all, it was those frees at the end. As I said, there was nothing in this game. As I was watching this game, I was thinking to myself, someone is going to lose this game, and they're going to spend the whole winter thinking, how did we lose that? Or they'll be thinking of what ifs and what if this happened. Well, the biggest what if in this game, unfortunately, was on the side of JK Brackens. End of the game, they're down by 3 points. I'll just talk through all that. The last finishing sequence of this game, the final 5 minutes, let's say. It wasn't a great game up to that. There had been a few moments. Jack Delaney had a very good game for Toom. Just catch and shoot kind of player. Can shoot from anywhere, can score from anywhere. He got 4 points from play. A point each then for Conor O'Farrell, who had another good game. Paul Ryan got a point. Adam Hall got 1. Conor O'Mara got a point. And Darren McCarthy got 9 points, with Mark McCarthy getting that sideline. For JK Brackens, Cathal Scully, the fullback, scored 1 from long range. Kieran O'Shea was a nice threat up in the full forward line for JK Brackens throughout. Conor Cadell got 1. Shane Doyle, the free taker, got 8 points. Lyndon Fairbrother got 2 points early on in the game from play, and Andrew Ormond got a point as well. So it was that kind of game. The atmosphere was even kind of cagey, tense, no real free flow into the game at all. But it came down to those last 5 minutes. It was 15 points apiece, and that's when I was thinking, God, who's going to lose this? They're going to be sickened, because it was a very winnable game for both teams. And it came down to that. A long range free from Darren McCarthy. He had just missed one on the 45. This one was just on his own 45, I should say. This one was a little bit outside his own 45, but right out by the sideline, in front of the Toomevara dugout, but over at that sideline side, the road side of the field in Bursalee. and Darren McCarthy's standing over the free. He's going through his routine, and the JK Bracken's crowd are roaring, "How long?" and he's time, and just trying to put him off it in a way. And he just slots it over the bar from a long ways out. Big free from Darren McCarthy. Then he gets a 65 a few moments later, and then Mark McCarthy gets a brilliant line ball from right in front of the stand, maybe around the 45, if not just inside it, over the bar. That put 3 points in it. And then about 4 minutes into additional time, Shane Doyle gets a 21-yard free, leathers it. It's saved on the line. Not sure who in the Toomevara line got a stop to it. Ball deflects out. Jamie Ormond is going to rise it. He hits the deck. Referee, I think it was John McCormick refereeing, indicated that he was tripped. And in fairness, not a lot of the Toom players were kind of arguing with the fact that it should have been a penalty. And up stepped Shane Doyle, who I'd said had missed a few frees. Difficult, windy day, in fairness to him. He steps up for the penalty, does the right thing, bounces it, just inside the edge of the square, let's say, and it bounces and it hits the post, the upright, butt of the post, and goes out to the side. Jake Hackett gets onto the break for Toomevara, clears it down. I don't even think he got a chance to clear it down the field. The referee blew full time, and you just saw Bracken's players drop to their knees. So it was incredible drama for a finish. Wasn't a classic of a game, as I was saying on commentary on Tip FM at the time. If you're going to watch this game back, you can just kind of maybe skip to the 50th minute and watch from there. But there was some good performers, as I mentioned, for the scores and that for Toomevara. But Toom got a good impact off their bench. I mentioned Mark McCarthy's point. Austin Duff won a few 50-50 balls that came his way when he came on, and Jake Hackett was good as well. For Brackens, off the bench, they had Michael Cowell come on. James Corcoran started the game, and Dean McEnroe started the game as well. Jordan Maloney came on. So it's a disappointing one for Brackens. As I said, it's just to go out of the championship like that, missing a penalty, not playing your best, but almost still getting the result is going to be disappointing. They do have the football next week. In terms of wides, Toom had 9 as I met it, and Brackens had 12. So, the better shooting was with Toomevara on the day. And of course, you have to mention the loss that was Kevin McCarthy for Toomevara after his red card against Killadangan was upheld. He was a huge loss. He really was. Conor O'Mara was kind of playing that role out around the centre forward position, but Conor O'Mara is probably well into his 30s at this stage. Just doesn't have that same mobility that Kevin McCarthy has. So offers maybe something different than Kevin McCarthy, and it was a loss for Toom. Usually you have Conor O'Mara in the full forward line and brilliant to pick off scores and things like that, but Kevin McCarthy's all action. He's and his loss was hugely felt for Toomevara. So they'll be delighted that they've gotten over the line without Kevin McCarthy in particular, and they go marching on. And it's a Toom team that's a match for anyone. We've said it all championship that they're among the favourites. They've probably got the unfavourable draw, as we see here. They're going to be playing Lockmore Castellini next Saturday at 4:30 in a repeat of the county final from last year. That is just going to be unbelievable. Like, as I'm thinking in my head who I'm going to predict for these games, it's going to be fair hard. It's going to be fair hard. We'll go through my predictions for this weekend. I got on pretty okay, but let's get back to it. So that was the game on Saturday. We'll go to the games on Sunday. We'll start with the one I was commentating on Tip FM. It was Killadangan against Killer 1 McDonagh's. Killer 1 319, Killadangan 315 was the full-time scoreline there. Killer 1 full value for their win, but Killadangan will be looking at the wide count, the missed goal chances, and thinking, God, we weren't at our best, but we still could have won that game. In fairness to Killadangan, they're so hard bet. They weren't at their best whatsoever. And you can say that's because Killer 1 didn't let him, and that's a very fair comment, but still not being at their best. They got it back to 2 points late on with a Joe Gallagher goal, and they were still there. But 17 wides for Killadangan is what I have recorded when I was commentating. 8 wides for Killer 1, but 17 wides. Billy Seymour had a goal chance early on that he kind of just hit straight at Paulie Williams. Not a very hard shot. But yeah, it was one of those games. Keane O'Kelly was brilliant for Killer 1. He got 2 goals, but he was such a ball winner. He must have won 3 or 4 frees from just catching a high ball and getting fouled. Willie Cleary got a few great scores from play, nailed the frees as well. Keane O'Kelly got a second goal then at the very start of the second half. So they were playing into the wind. At half-time, it was 1-11 to 1-8. And you were kind of saying that probably favours Killadangan, to be fair. Brian Malachny got a goal can't exactly remember what minute, but Kildangan got right back into. I think it was actually around the 28th minute or around that before half time. Kildangan got a goal. Brian Malachney. It was one of those. There was a load of shots that kept getting blocked in around the edge of the 14. Eventually, it fell to Brian Malachney, and he's such a good finisher. He finished it. It was actually Joe Gallagher there was an off the ball incident, and we looked down, and the umpire had the handout for the referee. I think it was Kevin Jordan to call him over, and you're thinking, right, this looks bad. And it was Billy Seymour who was arguing with the umpire. So straight away you thought, oh God, Billy Seymour could have done something here. I think it was Aaron Morgan who was down on the ground, holding his stomach, and I think he was even showing the referee the mark on his stomach. So whatever happened, but so we were thinking on commentary, God, Billy Seymour could be in trouble here. And then the referee calls over Joe Gallagher, and Joe Gallagher is getting spoken to by the referee, and you're thinking, okay, Joe Gallagher, is he going to get sent off? And then it's a yellow card for Joe Gallagher, and a few minutes later he snaps a puck out, kind of unleashes Ty Gallagher down the inside the 21, and that's where the goal kind of came from. As I said, the shots kind of bounced around, and then Brian Malachney finished it off. So that got Kildangan right back in it before half time. And then the start of the second half, at half time you're thinking, God, Kildangan are playing with the breeze down into the quote unquote town end. No, it is the town end, but the quote unquote scoring end in Nina, if you believe in that sort of thing. Kildangan down playing into that in the second half, and you're thinking, this could be tough now for Killer One. Have they missed their chance? Not going in with a little bit more of a cushion at half time. But the very start of the second half, the first goal was a brilliant catch from Thomas Cleary and played it into Keano Kelly, who finished it. The second goal, another great take from Thomas Cleary, and a lovely hand pass. He could have taken a point if he wanted. He turned his man and he just head straight for the black spot. Such a hard man to stop. Hits a lovely hand pass over to Keano Kelly, and he finishes it from close range. That put Killer One up by 6. And for the rest of that second half, Kildangan just looked out of sorts, is kind of how you'd describe it. Now, they still scored 3-15, a couple of late goals there as well, but they just weren't at their fluid best. All those wides sucking the momentum out of it, a few mishit shots and things like that, a couple of their key men not firing at all, and still, as poor maybe as they were playing, a long ball into the edge of the square, like John McGrath in the All-Ireland final, Joe Gallagher jumps up, flicks it into the back of the net, and suddenly it was a 2-point game with 5 minutes to go. But it was the response to that goal from Killer One that kind of showed the team they are. They scored the next 2 points. One of them was they won a free inside their own 65, and this could be a chance to slow the game down. You're up by 3 points. The other team are after getting a goal, but no, and it was a free maybe 10 yards inside their own 65, and you'd think they'd call out Paddy Williams maybe to have a crack from distance, but no, Niall O'Mara literally put the hand up to say, Paddy Williams, stay back, and he played this like 25-30 yard ball down the line in front of the stand to Shane Cleary, young player under 17 last year. He touched it into his hand off his left on the sideline outside the 45 over the bar. That gave a huge lift. And then a few moments later, a long ball to the edge of the square, and it was Owen Hogan, cornerback for Killer One, who came onto the field. He didn't start the game. He comes on and breaks onto the ball. That breaking ball, I think it was like a crossfield ball, and he broke onto it and was fouled inside the 14, and Niall O'Mara sticks the penalty into the back of the net. That was kind of it then. Brian Malachney did get his second goal, a bit of a consolation goal late on, but it was just brilliant from Killer One McDonough's. But that Shane Cleary point in particular, Willie Cleary got an unreal point in that first half, but they're a very, very complete team, Killer One McDonough's. I thought Jack Peters, who started the game at cornerback, I thought he did really, really well. Obviously an experienced player for Killer One at this stage, but he had a very good performance. So sticky. I mentioned on commentary, he is unorthodox. I think he switches his hands maybe. Does he throw it up with the left and he's left on top? It just looks a little bit different than the other players when they're striking the ball. So I'd have to probably slow it down and look at exactly what he does. But really, really effective. Brilliant game for Jack Peters. Aaron Morgan was very, very good. He's such a good man marker, and he can kind of do it all. He's a really good man marker, but he's a really good hurler as well. You don't often see that a lot, where someone can do both. He can push up the field and score if you need him to, but he's a really good man marker. He can kind of cancel a player out. Craig Morgan and Niall O'Mara working in tandem, hand passing in the half back line, working ball out. Jory Cahill was absolutely brilliant in the middle of the field. He scored 3 points from play, linking the play, winning. I couldn't count how many times the ball was in a ruck in the middle of the field, and it was Jory Cahill to emerge with the ball and kind of set up the play. So he was brilliant. And then we mentioned the Twin Towers inside. Thomas Cleary, scoreless on the day, but set up 2 goals for Keane O'Kelly, and Keane O'Kelly won an awful lot of frees. Young Shane Cleary had 2 points, one of them that special one out the sideline. Conor Austin got a point as well, and Keane Darcy got 2 points early on as well. So that was for Killer 1. A brilliant performance. And once they have everyone fit, like, let's not forget that their county quarter-final last year against Lochmore, they had Lochmore on the ropes and they kind of gifted them a couple of goals. So speaking to the manager, Thomas Williams, after the match at the weekend, he kind of even alluded to that they felt they kind of threw it away last year in the quarterfinals. Well, they're back in the quarterfinals now. For Killadangan, as I said, huge disappointment with the wides. Billy Seymour had a goal chance early on that was kind of half hit towards Paddy Williams. But yeah, it just never got going. The likes of Billy Seymour, Dan O'Mara, they both had to be replaced. Didn't go their way at all. Very much so for Billy Seymour. Didn't go his way whatsoever. He had a miss-hit shot from around the 65, and we've all seen the class of Billy Seymour throughout the last 5 or 6 years. It was just one of those days. Didn't go his way whatsoever. The best performers for Killadangan on the day, Joe Gallagher, in fairness to him, got 1-2 and had a big part to play in the other goal, Brian Malachny's first goal. Paul Flynn got 5 points from play, and he was trying to get things going. He was in the middle of the field, really getting on a lot of ball, getting a lot of important scores early on. Sean Hayes scored 4 points from play, always a threat. His pace and power. Willie Connors got 2 points. I thought James Quigley, he had a great battle back there with Thomas Cleary. I did mention Thomas Cleary set up 2 of the goals, but James Quigley came out with an awful lot of ball as well. I thought he had a very good game for Killadangan. But yeah, it just it kind of had a feeling at full time that you're thinking, God, this Killadangan team, they've won so much the last 10 years. They kind of got caught in the quarterfinals last year. They're beaten in the preliminary quarterfinals this year. It's their earliest exit in the championship in an awful long time. A lot of these lads have a lot of miles on the clock. It's a team that has a lot of miles. You're not writing them off, but you're thinking, could this be the end of this iteration of the team? They're going to need to probably integrate 1 or 2 more younger players in the next year or two. I'm not retiring anyone. I'm not writing this team off. They're the North champions. They had a tough group in the county championship, and they had a tough game here against Killer 1. It's not bad teams that are beating them by any way, by any stretch of the imagination. But you just wonder how this team is going to evolve in the coming years. But they do have still so many good players. But yeah, they just kind of weren't firing at all. And you wonder, the North Championship, that run they went on, and then the games coming thick and fast. Now, they did win their opening round game, but it's 3 defeats in a row for Killadangan, which is not something we would have seen from them in years. Usually it's 1 loss in a row, and it's a knockout game or something like that. They're not losing in group stages or anything like that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where this Killadangan team are come next year. But still so much talent, and still a lot of players with a lot of years left in them as well, is definitely worth saying. But for Killer 1, they go marching on, and as we see the draw in front of us, I'd say Killer 1 and Nina will both be very happy with their draw. It's Killer 1 against Nina next Sunday, 4 o'clock, the final of the quarterfinals, the last one of them. Neighbouring parishes, would both fancy it against each other. I can't wait for that one on Sunday. Now, that's going to be a brilliant game, and real 50-50 battle. You could put a case up for Nina winning that game. You could put a compelling case up for Killer 1 winning that game. If you want to know what I think and who I think is going to win, you'll have to listen to the podcast later in the week. Shameless stuff from myself there. But the podcast on Wednesday, I'll be going through. And I do have a fancy for that game. There is some games where I'm like, oh God, pure 50-50, I don't know. Now, that is a 50-50, but maybe I have it 51-49 in favour of one of those teams. So let's see what way I call that come Wednesday. But that is Killer 1 McDonagh's into the knockout stages, and they go marching on. Now, the other preliminary quarter-final took place at the same time. What a game this was. Drummond Inch 4-21, Clonalty Rossmore 3-23. What a game. 7 goals, a lot to get through in this one. As an overall kind of outlook on this game, Clonalty were 8 points up maybe with 15 minutes to go, and in fairness to Drum, they clawed their way back, and they're probably worthy winners for a finish. As I see a typo there on my screen in front of me, probably worthy winners for a finish. A lot of good performances to talk through here, but just something I wanted to mention is Seamus Callanan. Shamey is what age now at this stage? He's probably late 30s or mid to late 30s. He still has some turn of pace. Like straight line running, once he gets going, he's 6'4". His body seems very fresh. The first goal for Drum was 18th minute. Cormac Cahill scored it, but Seamus Callan got it, and just the speed of him through the middle, he was leaving people behind him. Such a big, powerful runner as well that you're never going to be able to stop him. No, you're not going to see many people throwing their body out in front of a Seamus Callan barreling down the middle of the field. He's a big unit. He's moving at pace, and he set up that goal for Cormac Cahill, who finished it from a tight angle. The first half, there was a big wind. This game was played in Borland. Some great long-range scores, though, from Enda Heffernan. Stephen Ferncombe put up a big score. He scored around 2:10. He scored a penalty in the second half. He scored a 21-yard free at the last puck of the game as well. But his free taking is really good. Real kind of stylish player is Stephen Ferncombe. Still very young. I think he's only about 22, 3 maybe. But very good player for Clonalty Rossmore. And, it just shows this Dan Breen Championship. Like, Clonalty have to prepare now for a relegation semi-final against Mullinahone at the weekend. And, they're a puck of a ball away from preparing for a quarter-final, and you wouldn't be backing against them nearly in a quarter-final. They're that type of team. They're hurlers all over the field. Some real kind of classy players. Some real kind of tough, dogged players as well. They kind of have it all, but they were just pipped by Drum and Inch here in this one. So it was 14 points to 1-6 in favour of Clonalty at half-time. I said they were playing with that strong wind, but they started the second half very well. Stephen Ferncombe got that penalty. I think it might have been Jimmy Maher who was fouled. Kind of a 50-50 ball up in the air, and the Drum lad kind of crashed into Jimmy Maher. Ferncombe buried the penalty, put Owen Collins the wrong way. Real nice strike. And then 3 minutes later, a kind of speculative ball was landing in around the edge of the square. Awkward, awful one for the goalkeeper and full back as they're kind of waiting for it. They can't really attack it because it's just a little bit too high. It hits off the post, and Jimmy Maher is quickest to react. Brilliant finish from him. Touches it into his hand on the turn, back to goals, into the top of the net from close range on a bit of an angle. That was a brilliant goal. So that made it 2-16 to 1-12 in favour of Clonalty. They actually got a point after that, to go 8 points up after about 45 minutes. For Drum, they got a few frees to get it back to 6, and then a bit of a freak goal themselves. Another speculative effort, this time from a Drum and Inch point of view. It was Cormac Fitzpatrick. He hits it across the face of the goals from out around the 45, out on the sideline, kind of off the back foot, over the shoulder, kind of a strike, landing down around the edge of the square. David Collins gets a little flick, one hand, from about 3 yards out from the end line, let's say, and 3 yards to the right of the post. And close range, Jason O'Dwyer got something on it, but it was too close to him to react. That made it a 3-point game. Yeah, so that was in the 49th minute. Drum answered, or got a few more points, got it back level on the 55th minute of the game, and then the kind of real turning point came in the 57th, 58th minute. 2 goals in about 60 seconds for Drum and Inch. One again from David Collins, long ball down on top of him. He gathered it, I think he caught it out of the air on the 14, kind of back to goal, wriggled his way free, low into the bottom corner, great finish. And then again, next ball, puck out went long, broke down, Drum won it, hit it back in on top of David Collins. This time he kind of holds his man off, touches it into his hands, pops a lovely hand pass off to Paddy Canan, and he finishes it from close range. In fairness to Jason O'Dwyer, got something on it, but couldn't keep it out, and that pushed the Drum into the lead. In fairness for Clonalty, they stayed trying. Stephen Ferncombe did get a 21-yard free with the last puck of the game. Last puck of the game, that should be an M instead of a W on the screen there. That made it a 1-point game. Ball was pucked out, and that was it. 4-21 to 3-23. So unbelievable win for Drum and Inch. They're into the quarterfinals now. And I think at the start of the year I had Drum in that would have to be careful bracket. They've certainly proved me wrong anyway throughout this year. I've been really impressed with them. They seem to have a a new energy about them, just more about them this year. For whatever reason, they're looking fit. They've got really kind of intelligent hurlers around the field. The Campions, all three of them, if not more, definitely three of them in Lorcan, Podge and John Campion. There's Michael Campion as well, actually, so there could be four. All hurling really well. Obviously, Seamus Callanan hasn't lost it whatsoever. I mentioned his running ability, and some nice young players sprinkled in there as well, in terms of Cormac Cal also, and Cormac Fitzpatrick as well. So they're looking very good. They're into a quarter final, and they will play Mike Burris, who I would imagine maybe in a, like, I'd have more knowledge of the rivalries and the kind of historical head-to-head and the traditional matchups in North Tipperary than I would in Mid. So I'd wonder what the record like is for Drum and Inch against Mike Burris down through the years. Like, I'd have a feeling that they wouldn't really fear Mike Burris, really, Drum and Inch. So that one is going to be another great one. That's actually the first one on Sunday at 2 o'clock in Semple Stadium. So that's Mike Burris against Drum and Inch. So that is how the senior championship games went over the weekend. So let's go to our predictions. And it's 3 from 3. I predicted Drum and Inch to win that game. They won. I predicted Tumivara to beat Brackens. They won. And I did predict Killarone MacDonough's to beat Killadangan, and they won. So happy with that now. That's good all going. Those were tight games. Now, they could have went anyway. Those ones went my way. That's not how it went in some of the other games that we'll get into now. So let's go to the Premier Intermediate Championship. How are we for time? We are, is that 26 minutes or 36 minutes, right? I need to power through these games. So, Premier Intermediate Championship, Ballina against Thurles Sarsfields. Ballina, this preliminary quarter final, 2-22, Thurles Sarsfields 3-16, a 3-point win for Ballina. And watching this back today, really, really impressed with Ballina. Of course, they played and beat Burgess, my own club, twice this year. But watching them in this game, I think they've even gone up another level. Really fit team, and that's not just to say a classic football team, they're fit, but they cover the ground really well. They've got really athletic players that can, once they win a ruck, they can bust out and open things up. Michael Breen, David Kelly, Jack Collins, another one of those players, Charlie King, Terry O'Halloran there in wing back is having a good year. The Billy Collins, I can name him off now, but they're playing really, really well. Simon Grace is a good goalkeeper. They kind of have a real nice team at the minute, young team. But I was really, really impressed with how they played against Thurles Sarsfields. For Thurles, Mossy McCormack had a shot off the crossbar in the 10th minute. But as I said, these are notes I was making as I was watching Ballina moving really well in the first 20 minutes. Charlie King must have had 4 points in the first half, maybe. And I've mentioned it before, how he's unorthodox kind of style. He's a really good footballer, obviously the Tipperary under-20 football captain this year, but he's a really effective hurler as well. It might be a little bit unorthodox. He holds the hurley with the boss facing in rather than the boss facing out, but he's lightning quick, both speed in terms of running with the ball, but also his kind of shiftiness and a quick step to open up a bit of space. Matthew Power, as far as I remember, I don't think he played last year. Maybe he was away, maybe he was injured. I'm not too sure. But they missed his free taking ability. He's, I know for a fact Ballina were beaten by Burgess last year, and they missed a lot of frees that day. But Matthew Power is a very, very good free taker, and he's made a big difference this year. Now, there was a lot of wides for Thurles in that first half, but throughout the game, Ballina had their fair share of wides as well, so I wouldn't put it down to that. But Thurles got a goal in that first half. It was a great finish from Aidan Stakelum. A brilliant run from Jack Lanigan. He was kind of flicking it over lads' heads there for a finish on the 21 and played it out to Aidan Stakelum, and he finished it. So that was 1-8 to 11 points after 27 minutes. But just before half-time, Thomas Shannon, another young player for Ballina in the middle of the field, off his left, kind of mishit a ball going for a point. And from playing in goals myself, those are the most dangerous balls coming in around the edge of the square, because no one is set for them. You're often, the forward can get around the back of the defender, and that's kind of what happened here. Ball landing around the edge of the square, and who's in there? Only Stephen O'Brien, all 6'4" or 5 of them, and he gets a one-handed flick on the ball into the back of the net. So Ballina went up at half-time, or went in at half-time, 111 to 1-8? That ball hit the back of the net. But Thurles started the second half very well. Mikey O'Brien goal 3 minutes into it. Again, Jack Lanigan heavily involved. A lovely catch in the air. came across the edge of the 21, played the hand pass over the top to Mikey O'Brien, and he finished from close range. Jack Collins got the second goal for Ballina in the 47th minute. A good run from who else? Only Charlie King. Hand pass over the top. I think it might have been intended to someone else, and there was kind of a clash of the ash in the air on the edge of the 14. And Jack Collins had continued his run from midfield, and he let fly in it in the ground, on the ground into the back of the net. He scored about 1, 2 or 3. Jack Collins, of course, Tip under 20 last year, not 2025, let's say 2024. He was wing back on that team, but just such an effective player for Ballina. Really good hitter of sideline balls. I've probably mentioned that in the podcast before as well, but Thurles didn't go away. Jack Lanigan scored a penalty on the 57th minute. That was to make it 2-20 to 3-13, and it was back to 3 points in additional time. But Ballina held on for a big win for them into the quarterfinals now. And who are they playing off the top of my head? It's Garton Who, isn't it? Let me see. They play, Garton Who Glengoule next Saturday at 4 o'clock in Templederry. So Ballina are loving Templederry this year. They beat us up there. They've won their game there against Thurles Sarsfields, and now they're playing Garton Who there. So it's becoming their second home this year up in Templederry. And that is a big win for Ballina. And Thurles Sarsfield's year comes to an early finish for both their senior and Premier Intermediate teams. But I thought Jack Lanigan was brilliant for them. But fair play to Ballina. They've been brilliant all year. They're North champions. They were unlucky that they had to come the preliminary quarter-final route because of that late goal they conceded against Upper Church Drumban. But they've brushed that to the side, and they'll take huge momentum now into this quick turnaround into the quarterfinals next weekend. Let's go to Moneygall now, and they had a big win, 119 to 20-point victory over Aero Gannacarthy in their preliminary quarterfinal in the Premier Intermediate. And similarly to how impressed I was with Moneygall, very impressed by Ballina, similar to how impressed I was with Ballina, I was very impressed with Moneygall looking at this game. Again, we've played them, Burgess, twice this year. We beat them once in the North Championship, and they bet us in the County Championship. But I think they've really settled in at this level, and they're kind of probably more belief and confidence in themselves at this level, which is only natural the more games you played. They're coming up from the intermediate last year. I'm so impressed with Shea Gleeson. They're under 19s in general. Shea Gleeson was very good. I'm a big fan of Tig White. He got one nice score. I'm not sure did he get on much other ball, just kind of as I was flicking through. He did get one nice score. But for his age, he's a real athletic kind of build as well. That you could see him developing as the years go on into a real kind of athletic player. But he's a fine hurler. And obviously Owen Duhan nailing the frees, really good from play. Just a real tidy, real good hurler, Owen Duhan. But Shea Gleeson, his power at the back. And someone else who I was really impressed with, I have him written down as the usuals in terms of Shawnee Kennelly. Joe Fogarty was really good. But Brendan Toohey, I thought he did a brilliant job on Dara Kelly. Dara Kelly, the danger man for Aero Gannacarthy, couldn't get into the game at all. He did come off injured with about 5 minutes to go. He did go off as a substitute with 5 minutes to go. If Dara Kelly is 100% fit, he's not getting taken off by Aero Gannacarthy, so I'd have to presume he was carrying some sort of knock. He did have his knee strapped. He was injured earlier in the year, so maybe something flared up there. Again, for Aero Gannacarthy, wides has been an issue this year. They hit a lot of them in that second half, both from play and from frees. Aidan Griffin had a chance to level the game on the 65, just on the 60th minute. That went wide, and he had a chance from play then just moments later. That went wide as well. He did score 12 points though, but the kind of last score of the game was from Adam Hogan, but it was a great pass from Joe Fogarty. Brilliant kind of play from him on the sideline and opening up a bit of space for Adam Hogan, who finished it. So between Adam Hogan and kind of Aidan Ryan in the middle of the field, real lively players. Brendan Toohey, so solid at the back. Shea Gleeson, a powerhouse at the back, a real athlete, someone that I'm sure Brendan Cummins might have his eye on for the under-20s next year. And then the class they have in terms of an Owen Duhan, Shawnee Kennelly up the other end, Paddy Fogarty, fine player. This is a Moneygall team that are young, they're grown into it, and they looked really impressive in that game. So brilliant win for them. They're up 3 points at half time with a strong wind, but it was Shawnee Kennelly who got the goal in the 34th minute. So similar to kind of Killer One McDonough's, the start of the second half into the breeze, they get a big goal, and it was Shawnee Kennelly who was sent through and one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Darren Mooney batted it past him. But after that, I've kind of talked through how the game played out. So big win for Moneygall. As I said, they go into a quarter-final now, and it's against Borlahan Douala. They won't fear Borlahan Douala whatsoever. They played in a intermediate semi-final 2 years ago, the year Borlahan Douala won it. That went to extra time in miserable conditions in Templetuohy. And Borlahan Douala won it that day. It was like, it could have been maybe 113 to 112 kind of a game. It was real wet conditions. But those are two teams that were intermediate a couple of years ago. Here they are meeting in a Premier Intermediate quarter-final, and they will both fancy it against each other. And similarly to Ballina, I think Moneygall will take huge confidence from that. So when it comes to my predictions for those games, I went 0-2. I predicted Thurles Sarsfields to win. Ballina won that game. And I did predict Aero Gannacarthy, and Moneygall won that game. So Aero Gannacarthy, their year probably won with frustration. They lost narrowly to Borlahan Douala in a game where they hit a lot of wides. They lost narrowly to the Silvermines in a game where they got two lads sent off and hit a number of wides, and they lost there by 2 points against Moneygall, where they did hit a few wides. But I think Moneygall were the better team throughout, so they deserved the win. So we'll go to the other games then. In the Premier Intermediate, the relegation semi-finals. So bad news for my own Burgess here. We were beaten by Templederry in a crazy game inside Nina in the relegation semi-final. 7 goals in the first half. Was it 3 for Templederry and 4 for us? And Templederry led by 2 points at half time. It was crazy stuff. It finished up Templederry 4-25, Burgess 5-15. This was the Sean Ryan show. It was showtime Sean Ryan inside Nina. He scored 3-3 from play. I think he scored about 3-5 or 3-6 overall. He was just kind of too hot to handle. Now, I don't know if our setup was the best. He was in there one-on-one for large parts of that first half, Shawnee Ryan. And if he's in there one-on-one with the best defender in the country, he's going to cause him trouble. So he scored 3-3. Even when we had another man back there, he still got a brilliant goal in the second half. And it was actually kind of like audible reactions from the crowd, like oohs and ahs. Like when the ball, at one stage in the second half, I remember the ball being delivered in, and as everyone was following the ball and they saw that it was going towards Sean Ryan, there was this like a sense of anticipation from the crowd. There's not many players that's like that, and I just think he has to be in with Tip next year. He never really put a foot wrong when he was in with Tip. Then he wasn't involved this year. Put it this way, there's not much more he could do to kind of put his hand up both last year and this year. So just brilliant stuff from Sean Ryan. I had said on the preview podcast that we're going to have to try and do something to stop Sean Ryan, and it was him who done serious damage. For ourselves, 2 goals from Sean Dunn, 2 goals from Kieran Grace, and 1 from David Nealon. So they're all players that are under the age of, Sean Dunn is probably the oldest of those 3 players, and Sean's probably 24, maybe 23, 24. Kieran Grace is probably 20, and David Nealon was on the under-19 team this year. So that's a positive for us in terms of good young lads, but it's 4 defeats in a row, so we're into a relegation final against Clonakilty in a few weeks' time. So we're going to have to get something going. But for Templederry, it seemed to be a great move, bringing James Woodlock in. And I can't think, was it Colin Murray who got the other goal? I'd have to look at the programme, but I think it was Colin Murray. I think he scored around 1-5 as well. He had a very good game. Templederry did have Adrian Ryan back, made a big difference. Brian Stapleton came on as well and made a difference near the end. So, this is a Templederry team as well that are without one of the best defenders that their club has produced in Christy Coughlin. So huge loss for them all year. He had knee surgery not too long ago, so we wish him well. But that's job done for Templederry. They can forget about the year and move on. Tim McCutcheon in goals for Templederry did make a good save from a penalty from Ronan Tucker in the final quarter as well. That was an important moment, because if that went into the back of the net, who knows what could have happened. But Templederry winners 4-25 to 5-15, and the other relegation semi-final was Moyne Templetuohy against Clonakilty. If the Templederry Burgess game was the Sean Ryan show, the Moyne Templetuohy Clonakilty game was the Gerard O'Connor show. Out of Moynes 117, Gerard O'Connor scored 112. Brilliant performance from him. He was scoring frees, he scored a sideline, he got a brilliant goal from play. But they were 8 points up, I think, Moyne Temple 2 he were. And Clonakilty, in fairness to them, got it back to 2 points late on. It was a tit for tat start. After about 7 or 8 minutes, it was 4 points apiece. Bobby Bergen had a good game for Clonakilty. He hit the post early on. He would score a goal though about 7 minutes later in the 17th minute. High ball in 1-on-1. He caught it, turned his man inside the 14 and buried it low past the goalkeeper. It was 12 points to 1-7 at half time. In fairness to Moyne, they did get a good response from that goal. They kind of dominated the rest of that first half, and I think Clonakilty got one more point between the 17th minute scoring that goal and half time. And then the second half, 5 minutes into it, long ball down on top of Gerard O'Connor. He was somehow in space, kind of in behind the defender. He caught it, no chance for the goalkeeper, buried it into the back of the net from close range, 115 to 1-8 at that stage. And Moyne went up 8 points with 20 minutes to go. But Moyne got their last score in the 45th minute, and it was kind of holding on for not for dear life, let's say, but they were holding on. It was a real scrappy affair in Templemore. But Clonakilty stayed plugging away. They kept knocking over the frees with Keane O'Dwyer. Michael John Carroll got a few scores there watching it back, and it was back to 2 points in the 62nd minute, and anything can happen at that stage. But Moyne Temple 2 held on for the victory. So it is going to be Burgess against Clonakilty in the relegation final. So that's going to be in October 11th, 12th weekend. So not looking forward to that. You never want to be in a relegation final, but if you win it, you can forget about the year and move on. So let's hope I hope anyway, certainly, that Burgess get the win there in a couple of weeks. So let's go to our predictions for that one. You know the drill. I predict Burgess to win. Unfortunately, we didn't win. And I did predict Moyne Temple 2 to beat Clonakilty, which they did. We have to move to the Intermediate Championship. Now we're going well. What are we? We're 43 minutes in. So this is, how do I yap on so much? Right, here, Intermediate Championship. One preliminary quarter-final, chaotic stuff here in Holy Cross. Arvale Rovers against Shannon Rovers. I actually have the score written the wrong way around. So it was Arvale Rovers who were 33 points, and it was Shannon Rovers who were 421. What a game. Talk about just not being able to shake a team off you. I don't know how many times in this game Arvale went up, well, 4 if they got 4 goals, but Arvale went up by 3 points and Shannon Rovers would get a goal just to wipe it out. Austin Tierney got a hat-trick. He got a goal on the 10th minute and the 25th minute, and then he got one on I have the first minute there, that should be probably 41st, if not 51st. Minute of the game, or maybe 31st, who knows, but it was the second half anyway. He got his hat-trick. 2-6 to 12 points at half time, a draw game. It was 3-15 to 24 points at full time, a draw game. At half time of extra time, it was 4-16 to 28 points, a draw game. And at full time of extra time, it was 33 points to 421, a draw game. Just unbelievable. Talk about just not being able to separate the teams. Arvale did play all of extra time though with a man down. Shane Lahey got a straight red card on the 52nd minute for Arvale. He shouldered the lad kind of into the head over by the sideline. For some reason at that moment when I was watching it back on Clubber, the sound wasn't synced properly. So you kind of see the collision, and then like a second later you hear everyone react. So it's kind of hard to tell how hard it was or anything like that. Maybe could have been a little bit harsh, but maybe if you were there, if you could see it and get the sense of hearing it as well, you'd have a better idea of how hard it was. But red card went out there for Shane Lahey. Sean O'Mahony, number 12 for Arvale Rovers, scored 3 sidelines in the game. Oren Jones, I don't know what he scored. He must have scored 15 points maybe. He must have taken about 25 shots, so it felt like every time I was flicking through that game, he was having a pop. Michael Tierney was the man who levelled it with the last puck of the game. Shannon Rovers, they just don't go away. They were 3 points down with 5 minutes to go in extra time, and they managed to claw it back, and Michael Tierney sent over the levelling score. But similarly, it was a Conor Moran free that levelled the game and sent it to extra time. And then at the first 5 minutes of extra time, Arvale got the first 3 points, and then Eamon Hawke came back with a goal for for Shannon Rovers. And then it came down to the penalty shootout. It went to sudden death, but before it went to sudden death, so 5 penalties each. The last one of those 5 penalties, the 10th penalty, let's say, Matt Tierney had the chance to win it for Shannon Rovers. He hit it straight at the goalkeeper. In fairness to Paddy O'Donnell, he stood strong and saved it. There were some really good penalties throughout. Few of them kind of squeaked past the goalkeepers. Vincent Mulvihill made a brilliant save, the first penalty of the shootout, actually. That was one that was struck by Owen Jones, and it was a brilliant save by Vincent Mulvihill, and the goals for Shannon Rovers. But it came down to sudden death. It was 11-10 on penalties, and someone was going to miss. And unfortunately, it was John O'Mara. He hit it down the middle, but goalkeeper Paddy O'Donnell stood strong and kept it out. So Arravale Rovers progress in one of the most dramatic matches in memory, 11-10 on a penalty shootout. So fair play to Arravale Rovers. Very disappointing for Shannon Rovers, but they've got a lot of nice young players there coming through as well in Shannon Rovers. But Arravale Rovers get the win. I actually predicted Shannon Rovers, so anytime I predict Shannon Rovers to win, they tend to lose. But I mean, that is a pretty close game. But fair play to Arravale. Who do they have now in the knockout stages? They have Golden Kilfeacle, so tough draw there. But 2 West Tipperary teams, so they won't be afraid of them, that's for sure. And they'll have a quick turnaround. That game is going to be on next Saturday at 4 o'clock in Anacarthy, so a real West Championship feel to that one. Then in the relegation of the Intermediate Championship, Newport saved themselves from the relegation final with a 124-119 win over Drummond-Inch. Drummond-Inch, the second team, of course. That was after extra time, so Newport needed that extra time to finally see off Drummond-Inch and get that win and keep their intermediate status. So difficult year for Newport, but their whole club will be buoyed by their really good performances at underage grades this year. For Drummond-Inch, they'll go into the relegation final, and it will be against Ballybacon Grange. Skeheenarinky 4-16, Ballybacon Grange 2-16 was the score in the relegation semi-final there. So big win for Skeheenarinky after their disappointing loss to Portroe in kind of very one-sided fashion. For Ballybacon, though, I don't think... Did Golden beat them by a bit of a score in the first round, but after that they've kept nearly all their games fairly close. They lost to Shannon Rovers by 5 points, and I think they lost to Kilsheelan by 5 or 6 points, and it's a 6-point defeat here, so they always make it difficult. And what have we said about Ballybacon? They find a way to avoid relegation every year. They're going to have to do it in the relegation final this year against Drummond-Inch, so that's going to be an interesting one in 2 weeks' time as well. So that's pretty much it for this not this week's podcast, because we do have one more, but for today's podcast, a reminder to like the video, subscribe, give us all the good feedback. It's all good for the algorithm. The draw, I'll go through a proper reaction on the Wednesday podcast, but so many good matchups there to look forward to next weekend, and we don't have long to wait. We'll go through all of them on Wednesday. Could dip our toes into the Junior A, but to be honest, I haven't seen any of these teams play, so I'd be spoofing to a degree, but can't wait for next weekend. So many good games to look forward to. And we never went through our predictions there. So I did predict Skeheenarinky to win, and I did predict Newport to win. So let's see, what did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 out of 10. I said at the start, if I got 6 out, or I said on the preview podcast, if I got 6 out of 10, I'd be doing well. Very happy with the 3 out of 3 in the senior. I'd imagine Killer won. Were they underdogs? I'm not too sure, but happy with that. Predictions, that's probably my hit rate so far. I think it's nearly always around that 60% mark. So doing pretty well there. But that is going to be it for this podcast. I have to get out of here before 8 o'clock, and it's 7:59 as I'm recording this. So hope you enjoyed that. I will be back on Wednesday evening. It'll probably be up late Wednesday. Probably won't get it uploaded till maybe 9 or 10 o'clock. So hope you enjoyed this podcast. Brilliant week ahead. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Good luck and God bless.